This isn't just a video about social media, and this isn't a video about wasting time. This is a video about control. Control of which you have none. Once upon a time, in an era almost forgotten, perhaps sometime around the late 20th century, we lived in a world of structured entertainment. There were channels, preordained schedules, and the sheer relief of not having to think. One simply turned on the television and accepted what was given like a humble serf before the benevolent yet indifferent monarchy of network programming. And then, catastrophe struck. With the advent of streaming services, those shimmering, infinite libraries of possibility, our society found itself shackled to the most insidious of modern afflictions, the tyranny of choice. No longer was one gently guided by the steady hand of television executives who had already decided that yes, one would be watching a rerun of Friends at exactly 7:30 p.m. No. Now one must choose, and in choosing, one must suffer. It's a paradox of infinite choice. Let us, for a moment, enter the mind of an average individual, someone who is just like me and you, someone who's your average Joe. Joe has had a long day, Joe wishes to unwind, and Joe desires nothing more than to be cradled in the comforting arms of a well-crafted narrative. But first, Joe must select something to watch. And here begins Joe's descent into the abyss. Would Breaking Bad be a sophisticated choice? A dignified choice, seemingly so, but oh no, committing to a 5-season drama is no light undertaking. A single click binds you to hours, if not days, of meticulously crafted storytelling. And who among us can say that they are ready for such a commitment on a weeknight? A comedy then? Something light, something breezy, something quaint, something cheesy, something that requires no cognitive exertion whatsoever. But which one? The Office? Too familiar. Arrested Development? Nah, too clever. Parks and Recreation, perhaps? But does Joe really feel like it? Or is this an illusion, a deception brought by the desire to avoid making a real choice? And so, like a modern-day Hamlet, clutching his remote as though it were Yorick's skull, Joe scrolls, and he scrolls, and he scrolls. 30 minutes pass. Joe could have, in fact, watched an entire episode of something by now, but instead, Joe remains paralyzed, overwhelmed by the weight of possibility. In attempting to optimize relaxation, Joe has instead created a form of mild psychological torture. Perhaps this is not the right moment for television at all. Maybe YouTube, but that feels too mundane. Also, there aren't any new uploads in his subscription feed. Maybe a film then, but here the stakes are even higher. A 2-hour commitment. What if halfway through, Joe realizes that another film, one just slightly better, just marginally more suitable, was waiting mere pixels away? He will never know, of course, because in choosing one film, all others remain unseen, lingering in the infinite backlog, haunting the periphery of his thoughts. What if? What if? What if? It's a mirage of countless better options. And here we find ourselves at the core of this modern existential condition. The gnawing suspicion that there is always a better choice, the next swipe on Tinder, the next menu option to eat, the next perfect show that aligns with our mood in an indefinable, ephemeral way. The moment we commit to one, we forfeit all others, and thus we hesitate, we waver, we scroll ever onward. But let's not forget the great irony of it all. Streaming services, ever eager to alleviate this burden, have introduced helpful features. Recommendation algorithms, pre-curated lists, autoplay functions that remove choice entirely, and yet we resist. But why? Because the moment we are told what to watch, the illusion of free will collapses. The same individual who has spent an hour lost in the labyrinthine corridors of their very favorite entertainment service will, upon receiving a direct recommendation, feel a strange sense of defiance. No, I don't want to watch that. You don't know me, algorithm. You don't understand the complexities of my current mood. And so we return to the search, the endless, futile search for the perfect option. The only logical conclusion one might wonder, is there a way out? Is there an escape from this endless suffocating paralysis of choice? And the answer is simple. Not really. For choice is, at its core, an act of relinquishment. To choose one thing is to let go of countless others. And humans, these poor, indecisive creatures that they are, were simply never meant for this magnitude of freedom. Perhaps then, the only path to salvation is the most radical one of all. Close Netflix, turn off the television, stare at the ceiling, embrace the void. Until you reach for your phone, out of sheer habit, a mindless gesture. Ah yes, doomscrolling, a term so modern, so perfectly attuned to our age that it almost sounds like a joke. But the sad reality is, this isn't a joke. This is an affliction, a condition, a psychological trap so ingeniously designed that it ensnares even the most self-aware among us. And what precisely is doomscrolling? It's the act of scrolling endlessly, mindlessly, through an infinite cascade of information, absorbing content not because we want to, but because we must. News articles, social media posts, catastrophic headlines, trending topics, all flying past in an unrelenting torrent, offering no resolution, no relief, only the oppressive weight of a world perpetually on the brink of collapse. And yet, do we stop? Do we close the apps, set our phone aside, reclaim our agency? Of course not. We scroll, and we scroll, and we scroll some more. It's an illusion of engagement. But why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why, when confronted with an unending deluge of distressing information, wars, economic downturns, political scandals, environmental catastrophes, celebrity divorces, why do we not look away? Because doom scrolling presents itself as a form of engagement. It whispers to us, it seduces us. It convinces us that we are participating in the world by witnessing its downfall in real time. And to stop scrolling feels irresponsible. To unplug feels selfish, and so we convince ourselves that each refresh, each new headline, each horrifying update is an act of vigilance. We must stay informed. We must remain aware. We must bear witness. We must be in and be a part of the loop. Never mind that this engagement is passive, that our understanding of these events is often shallow, fragmented, mediated through algorithmic filters designed not to inform us, but to retain us. Never mind that doom scrolling rarely, if ever, results in action. No policies are changed, no meaningful discourse is created, no relief is found. We scroll because we feel we must. Even as we sense deep down that nothing about this process makes us feel better, happier, or more prepared. Yet we still can't look away. And here once again we encounter a deeper, more unsettling truth. Doom scrolling is not an accident, it is engineered. Did you really think it was mere coincidence that social media platforms, news aggregators, and digital feeds are designed to be infinite? That your thumb can swipe, your screen can refresh, and there will always be more. And this is not simply because there is more news, more content, or more stories unfolding across the globe. No, this is because infinity is engaging. Psychological studies have long confirmed what the media industry has known for decades. Negative information captures our attention far more effectively than positive news. Our brains are wired to detect threats, to anticipate danger, to focus on the worst possible outcomes. And in the attention economy, where user engagement translates directly into profit, it is only natural that algorithms would prioritize fear, outrage, and catastrophe. I mean, think of it. Have you ever doom-scrolled good news? Of course not. Nobody does, because good news lacks the urgency, the addictive dread, the compulsive pull of crisis. And so the algorithms serve us tragedy on a silver platter. A war zone, a political scandal, an economic collapse, followed perhaps by a quick interlude of celebrity gossip to provide momentary relief, only to be followed again by yet another apocalyptic forecast for the future. We are not being informed, we are not educated, we are being stimulated. Doomscrolling is the paralysis of modern existence, but what is the consequence of this? Surely, one might argue, being aware of the world's problems, no matter how distressing, is still better than ignorance. Surely, it is our duty to know what is happening, and yet the great irony is that it produces no action. For what do you do after an hour of reading about global catastrophes? Be honest. Do you spring into action? Rally for change, mobilize the masses? Think about it. Did you think about it? The answer is probably the same for most of us. We just scroll some more. The overload of information does not empower us, it exhausts us. We become tired, emotionally drained, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of systemic problems that we as individuals feel powerless to change. We develop what psychologists call compassion fatigue. It's a condition in which exposure to constant suffering dulls our ability to feel deeply for any one cause. We should care, we want to care, but the stream of horror is too vast, too unrelenting, and so rather than engage meaningfully, we sink further into passive consumption. We become cynical, and apathy is all that's left. And here perhaps we find the most tragic consequence of all. Endless scrolling and the impossible choice between anything and everything everywhere all at once has killed narrative. For what is a narrative if not a sequence of events with a beginning, a middle, and an end? A structure, a resolution, and then a moment of catharsis. Modern entertainment offers none of these. It is perpetual, it is endless, it is non-linear. There is no conclusion, no clarity, no moment in which we step back and say, oh, yes, well, now I understand. Instead, we exist in a state of perpetual anticipation, always waiting for the next disaster, the next development, the next twist in the great, never-ending tragedy of the world ending on a cliffhanger. And in doing so, we forfeit one of the most vital aspects of being human, the ability to process, to reflect, and to make meaning from all of this chaos. So what is the solution? How does one escape the trap? Well, it's quite simple, really. You stop scrolling. You log off. You reclaim your time, your attention, your capacity for deep engagement. But of course you won't. Not really. You will watch this video if you are still here. Perhaps you will nod in agreement and maybe share it with a witty remark about how this is so true, lol. And then you will return, you will pick up your phone, you will refresh. You will go to your go-to choice of social media and complain about how social media is ruining society. And then the cycle will begin anew and anew and anew. And so we return to Joe, still ensnared in the snares of indecision, scrolling through an endless sea of content that paradoxically both expands his options and renders him utterly incapable of making a choice. But let us, for a moment, widen our lens. What does it all mean when an individual, no, when an entire generation finds itself paralyzed by the mere prospect of deciding? And now we arrive at the truly unsettling implications. If one cannot select something as trivial as a film, what happens when the stakes are higher? What does it mean for a society when the ability to choose, to commit, to stand by a decision and to act without the relentless specter of doubt is slowly eroded? The phenomenon we now observe in Joe is, of course, not confined to the realm of streaming services. No, it is merely a symptom of a broader cultural condition, one in which the very act of choice has become so fraught, so impossibly burdened with potential regret that the safest decision appears to make no decision at all. Consider the modern dating landscape, a vast marketplace of potential partners, each one algorithmically sorted, each one just one swipe away. Here too, the illusion of infinite possibility breeds paralysis. For why settle on this one person, this one dinner date, and this moment of genuine human connection when the next one, just one swipe away, might be 0.5% more compatible? Or employment, where once we might have pursued a single career path with steadfast determination, now there is always another option, always another opportunity, another field of study that might, just might, be better suited. And so rather than commit, we prepare, we hesitate, and we contemplate. We are becoming a civilization of browsers, skimming, sampling, scrolling, but never quite committing. And in this endless state of non-choice, we deceive ourselves into thinking we are preserving freedom, when in reality, we are relinquishing all sense of agency and urgency. And this is where it becomes truly terrifying. What does this condition mean for our democracy, The noble system built upon the radical assumption that people are left to their own devices and will thoughtfully consider their options. Then, with great deliberation, they cast a vote in alignment with their values and beliefs. But how can they? Is democracy not, at its core, simply a vast and infinitely more complex version of the Netflix home screen? A sprawling interface of choices, each one fighting for attention, each one promising something just slightly better than the last? Political parties, candidates, policies, referendums, each demanding careful scrutiny, each requiring the voter to sift through the noise, to decide and to act. But in a world where the average individual cannot even decide what to watch on a Tuesday night, how can we expect them to meaningfully engage with the nuances of policy making? How can we trust that the same person who moments ago abandoned the search for a film in favor of a mindlessly watching whatever autoplay feature selected for them will not do the same with their vote? This is the rise of political apathy, of disengagement, of blind party allegiance. All these perhaps are simply extensions of the same great indecision. Overwhelmed by complexity, by choice, by the sheer magnitude of consequences, many choose the simplest option of all, not to choose at all. Or worse, to allow someone else, an algorithm, a media cycle, or a demagogue, to choose for them. There is an economic machine that fuels the condition. Let's not be so naive as to think this indecision is entirely organic. No, it's nurtured. It is carefully cultivated. It is encouraged by the industries that thrive on this paralysis. Streaming services do not want us to watch things. No, they want us to scroll. The more time spent searching, the longer we remain within their ecosystem. The more data is harvested, the more advertisements are tailored, the more recommendations are refined. Dating apps do not want us to find love. They want us to continue looking for love, swiping, hesitating, considering, but never quite landing. Consumer culture, too, is built on the foundation of indecision. Have you ever noticed that the moment you purchase one thing, another, better version is released? The newest phone, the upgraded model, the revised edition, and then it tricks you. People who bought X also bought Y, so if choosing is to miss out, you simply choose both, buy both, and then continue. Or alternatively, you hesitate, you delay, you add items to your cart only to abandon them later on. Indecision itself has been monetized. Our inability to commit has become a revenue stream. But perhaps the most tragic implication of all is this: if we cannot truly choose, can we ever truly want something? To desire something, to truly want it, is to accept that other options are being discarded. It is to commit, to risk regret, to embrace the possibility of disappointment. But a world built on infinite scrolling does not allow for true desire, because it never requires us to stop looking. And so we skim life's surface, never quite engaging, never quite satisfied, never truly watching a movie, and never fully falling in love. Never choosing the life we want. Because something better, just slightly better, might still be out there. And so I leave you with this. What will you do? Will you continue scrolling? Will you linger in the paralysis of possibility? Or, dare I say it, will you choose? But of course you don't have to do that right now. Take your time. We both know you will anyway. Or of course, you just simply rewatch The Office for the 12th time because, let's be honest, that's how it always ends. Thank you for watching.